Here's the sea here. The beast rises up out of this sea at its origin. Right? Well, if it evolves into Roman Catholicism, it covers the entire world. Why did it only cover this right here? Why did it only cover this right here? That was all there was to the world back then. So now it's all over the world, and being all over the world, it's a you know what it is? It's the worship of sin. When a man worships the tree, he goes after self. And you say, I don't worship that. Idolatry means to serve what you see, what you put in your eyes and your ears. That is your idol. Your idol is self. Now the sea, what will the sea be at the end of time? It was the peoples here, wasn't it? Well, let me just show you. Let's go over here to, let me give you in Revelation 17. Well, let me read Revelation 13, 1 and 2, and then go to Revelation 17. I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. Same words in Daniel 7, and the beast rises up out of this sea originally, the Mediterranean, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, Greece, and his feet, or its feet, was the feet of a bear, Persia, Mede Empire, and its mouth is the mouth of a lion, Babylon, and the dragon, Drakon, D-R-A-K-O-N. Now I want you to notice something here. Drakon. I've got to give you something I hadn't given you. This thing gets a little complex because we've already gone through a lot of this. The dragon gave him, or gave it, its power. The dragon gave it its dunamis. Its seat and great authority. Now, authority is the word exousia. The dragon, Drakon. Drakon, dragon, in the first century they believed, it means a serpent, but they believed that serpents mesmerized their prey, that they fascinated their prey, because when a serpent would be, the cobra particularly, would be weaving back and forth, and some little field mouse would be sitting there, and they wouldn't move. They didn't understand that the field mouse had a protective built-in way of trying to deter their enemies by standing still and not moving. And they thought that the serpent was fascinating the animal, and it was just standing there watching while it was going to be devoured. So some of the translators say the word dragon means to fascinate. Isn't that what was going on with the tree in the garden? Eve was fascinated. In fact, the word serpent in the garden, the word serpent, the serpent is more subtle than any beast of the field. That's not the common word serpent in the Old Testament. That's the word nakash, serpent. Nakash means to whisper or to enchant. I've got one writer, he says the word enchant means to kill with the eye. She looked, and she died, didn't she? And when the woman walks into the room, and she's Miss Supermodel, she walks in, she kills with the eye, and all the men go. That's what that word means. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about a dragon. Fascinate has the same idea as enchant. It means to make you feel good. This is where people get the truth mixed up with a lie, because we call, in Isaiah the 5th chapter, Isaiah said men will call bitter sweet and sweet bitter. And they'll put good for evil and evil for good. They'll call good evil and evil good. And that's what people do. They think, oh, God wants you to have nice things and good things. No, that's the other Jesus. God wants you to go through fiery trials to make you like Him, to reveal His Son in you, so you can see Him. Now, where was I? Stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his heads 10 crowns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now that's the beast, right? And look over here in chapter 12, in verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, same dragon as verse 2 of chapter 13, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. Now, how did the dragon get the horns? They gave their power away. That's Israel giving their power away. Who was it seduced them? Who was it seduced Israel? Well, okay. Let me just put it this way. What seduced Israel? Huh? Baal in the grove. All right. Baal was the fire god. Grove was the tree goddess. Baal was the fire. I think this is the same. What else is that called? Later on. Christmas. Yeah, Christmas. That's what they brought into the church. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. Babylon mothered it all. So if you're up here in Tyre and Sidon and they worship Hercules and Venus, or you go up here and they worship Diana, the female deity up here in Ephesus, or you go over here to Greece and they're worshiping Aphrodite and they're worshiping all the female deities are the tree deities. They're all tree deities. And all the male deities are sun deities. You can verify that by watching some old Steve Reeves, if you remember him. He was Mr. America back in the 50s and early 60s. And you watch some Saturday afternoon show where they made these cheap C-grade movies. I wouldn't even call them B-grade. And he's Hercules. And they'll call him they'll say, Hercules, the sun is your father, and you're the sun upon the earth. And they would call him the child of the sun. Well, that's what they were. They were sun gods or fire gods. The fire represented the sun upon the earth. So it doesn't matter where you go. They're all the same. They're just Nimrod and Semiramis. Those who started the tree and fire worship at Babel in Genesis 11. That's all it is. So wherever you go, it's all the same. When Israel brought that into Israel, when it was brought into Israel, Jezebel married Ahab. She brought her father's gods, Hercules and Venus, with her. She gave them generic names so it would make it easier to accept and more respectable. She gave them generic names, Baal and the Grove. Baal was a legitimate term. It meant the Lord. So it could confuse Israel. Keep them confused. Baal was another Jesus. That's what it was. And the Grove was the tree goddess. So he brought it down there and made it the national god and goddess of northern Israel. And that's where the pollution began. That's where it all started, was there. Now, they got involved in Christmas. Now let's get back here. I want to try to finish this up here. And there appeared in chapter 12, verse 3, there appeared the red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. So the dragon has got the 7 heads and 10 horns. So the dragon, Dracon, Israel was involved in the tree worship. It's what they were involved in. They were involved in being enchanted. That's what they're involved in. Now, go down here to chapter 13. In verse 2, notice The beast that I saw was like a leopard, and in its feet is the feet of a bear, in its mouth is the mouth of a lion. And the dragon, Dracon, the fascinator, gave the beast its dunamis and great authority, and its exousia. Gave the beast its dunamis and exousia. Remember, do you remember over there in Revelation 17? What does it say that gave the beast its dunamis and exousia? Look at it again. Revelation 17. Revelation 17. Remember, a horn was a power or a strength. It was a horn does not mean something you toot. It doesn't mean something that's on an animal's head. Horn meant strength or power. The last few verses of Zechariah, the first chapter, said there were 4 horns that carried Israel into captivity. Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. When you said horn, you meant a power or a strength. Now, we know that each one of the tribes of Israel was called a horn. Each one of them was an army in itself. You had southern Judah had the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. Northern Israel were the 10 northern tribes. The 10 northern tribes brought this idolatry into Israel by Ahab when he married Jezebel, the princess of the Tyre system, and her father was Ethbaal, a priest of Baal and a priest of the Ashtaroth, the female deities and the male deities there in Israel. So it was northern Israel, or the 10 northern tribes, that went after Baal in the Grove through Ahab and Jezebel, made this the national god and goddess of northern Israel. It bled down to southern Judah when Ahab and Jezebel's daughter Athaliah married Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, because Jehoshaphat ran around with Ahab all the time. Ahab was evil, Jehoshaphat was good. He had one failure. He liked to try to help Ahab, because Ahab would go to him and say, "We're both Israelites. We're brothers. And since we're brothers, you ought to come help me fight this king over here, this evil king." And Jehoshaphat would, "Okay, I'll give in. I'll come help you fight." Now, he loved God, and he read the scriptures through all of Israel, had it read all over Israel. And Ahab was a heathen. He had literally brought in Baal in the Grove, and all the Levites, the priests of God, left northern Israel, went to southern Judah, and said, "We won't have anything to do with that." So, let's get back here. I've got something to say. Let me show you. Now, it was the 10 northern tribes. I believe the 10 northern tribes are the 10 horns. I'll go back through that in a minute.